Marie Newman's a big election tonight. I think nothing's as important as the presidential election, obviously, but her being able to unseat Dan Lipinski is going to be massive if she does it, and so disappointing if she can. So that's something we're going to be looking out for in Illinois. Obviously, Ohio has moved the election, so it's not going to be tonight. But we still have Illinois, Florida, and Arizona. And if Bernie gets blown out, then we're in a world of trouble, and it might be over tonight. On the other hand, the DNC and its brutality decided to go forward here. We could talk more about that as we go forward too, because there's new updates on that. And if it turns out a lot of senior citizens didn't come out because of coronavirus, well then, who knows? Maybe the dynamic of the race is a little bit different than we would have normally expected.
No, but I mean, it's just so unacceptable that the DNC decides how they're going to proceed based on what helps the candidate that they prefer, right? So they should not have pushed for the primaries to be held today. Both Ohio and Illinois have decided to handle this in two completely different ways, with Ohio's Republican governor saying, no, we're gonna shut down the polling places because we don't wanna spread this virus in the middle of this pandemic, where our government is telling us that we shouldn't be out and about, touching things and socializing with people. And then in Illinois, the Democratic Party there is like, no, we're gonna move forward because we don't wanna disenfranchise voters. But I think voters are gonna feel disenfranchised if they're being told that they shouldn't leave their homes, right?
Yeah. So look, DNC just put out a statement saying basically that they want the rest of the states to go full steam ahead. So before they were trying to hide behind, oh, well, look, the states are doing it. Tom Perez went on MSNBC and was like, oh, I don't have anything to do with it. I mean, I support their decision, of course, but this doesn't have anything to do with the DNC. Well, that fiction is now over because they put out a statement saying all the other states should go forward immediately. So let's do a quick thought experiment here. How sure are we that if Bernie Sanders was leading, that the DNC would have a similar position and would say, no, you got to have the vote right away while Bernie's still leading?
Cenk, we are swole, okay? Because we did that thought experiment. We did that thought exercise during the main show.
How did that come out?
We don't think that the DNC would handle this the way that they have been handling it if Bernie Sanders had the lead in the delegate count right now.
Cenk, can I ask you something? Like I'm frustrated by this too, and certainly we're going to be doing, trying to figure out a couple different ways that this race could develop. I totally get that. But it was one thing when it was Tom Perez just saying, well, what are you gonna do? I guess they're gonna have elections, I don't wanna step in. But now they're encouraging states to do that. We love to start movements here. Shouldn't he and the rest of the leadership of the DNC that is trying to put people in a situation that could potentially get them sick or killed, shouldn't we be pushing for them to be pushed out of their positions? I mean, they're willfully gambling with other people's lives for short-term political gain of their own.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things here. First off, if anyone gets sick, or God forbid anyone dies from contracting coronavirus from the polling today, from going to the polling stations and the voting booths, that is going to be unrecoverable for someone like Tom Perez, that decision. And even if people just get sick and don't die, I mean, look at the conversation we're having. It's an unbelievable conversation. If all you cared about was politics, did you endanger the November election? Because the Republicans aren't going to vote. Trump's already won the non-existent primaries on the Republican side. Only the Democrats are being forced to go out and vote and potentially get sick. I mean, it's disaster on top of disaster. So, and look, I don't know what the establishment says to themselves to kid themselves. But we do that thought experiment. I thought of it and put it on Twitter, and you guys have the same exact thought and did it on the show, because we all know the answer. Every reasonable person knows the answer. If Bernie was leading, they would have slammed on the brakes and they would say, whoa, we don't want to get people sick. Does Bernie want to get people sick? Is that what Bernie wants? They would have done that. So this election, the DNC has further revealed themselves, but it was pretty clear where they stood in the first place. And of course, the media likewise. If Bernie was leading, they'd all be saying Bernie's a monster for wanting to continue with these elections. But right now, since Biden's leading, they're all pushing forward. So in terms of a movement, John, it's a good question. They're already on Twitter. Something's trending. It's either Tom Perez resign or fire Tom Perez, something along those lines. But they're not going to do any of that because they all agree. The only people that don't agree are progressives. They love to steamroll us. And the idea that the establishment would be like, oh my God, Tom Perez endangered people's lives to get Biden a win. They don't do that as a downside. They view that as brave of Tom Perez. We should rehire him. That is bold action.
Well, look, John has one other question for you, but before we get to John's question, I actually do want to play the video of Tom Perez talking about how people should go out there and vote today. So let's take a quick look at what he had to say and then we'll discuss.
Is your view that this can be safely conducted tomorrow? Who have you been consulting to come to that view?
Well, again, we didn't intervene in that case.
No, I know. This is a state matter, but I'm asking your position as Tom Perez, the head of DNC. My understanding is you're saying you agree with the states that are going forward.
Yes, we respect what they're doing, and we always encourage everyone. And I was in contact today with people in a number of these states, including but not limited to Arizona, and again asking them if do they believe they have the systems in place that enable them to put the elections on tomorrow, and they do. And Republican and Democratic governors have made that judgment that they can do that. I don't think it's for me to second guess those judgments, Chris.
So look, Cenk, I want your reaction to that. I think we should acknowledge that it is good of Tom Perez to worry about the health of the systems of the election, not the people who have to presumably work there. Does he know the average age of people who work at polling locations? It's like 95 years old. But also, when you respond, I don't know if you've seen this, but we've been talking about how, if somebody gets sick, it seems like it's on the people who decided to have the election. But I've seen some social media jujitsu where a lot of people who support Joe Biden are saying this is on Bernie because Bernie refuses to drop out. And so he's forcing the hand of Biden and the DNC to go forward with the elections.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so there's no end to it. So let's take it one step at a time. Since that video came out, the DNC has double down and made it further clear that it's not just, hey, what can I do with the states? That's what I was referring to earlier. It's that they are now saying the rest of the states should go forward. So there's no question about it. Now, I've also seen in social media people talking about how they went to the voting stations and people were crowded all around. The poll workers are touching them. People are scrunched together. There's tons of physical contact. So I saw some other movement on social media saying Tom Perez should be forced to be a poll worker today, which I thought is at least fair. Yes, that makes sense. It would be amazing if he said, "Oh no, I'm not doing it, but you guys should go out there and do it." And so, and I did see the jujitsu you're referring to, John, about Bernie Sanders. But it's funny, one of them referred to Nate Silver saying, it's now almost statistically impossible for Bernie Sanders to win, according to the beloved genius Nate Silver. So it's obviously his fault. Well, earlier in the election cycle, Nate Silver had Bernie Sanders with an overwhelming percentage chance of winning after Nevada. I forget if it was 98% or whatever. Number one, maybe not such a genius. Okay, number two, the numbers obviously move. And number three, I don't remember any establishment people saying, well, look, Biden's got almost no chance of winning. Why doesn't he just drop out already and just give Bernie the nomination? So their hypocrisy knows no bounds.
Cenk, during the main show today, Nando made a great point about how we're in uncharted territory when it comes to pretty much everything in this country. And not too long ago, everyone, including the establishment media, the establishment Democrats, thought that Biden's campaign was done, that campaign was dead. There was no chance. And look at where he is today. So, I mean, couldn't you make a similar argument for Bernie Sanders or any other candidate that would remain in this race? With the exception of Tulsi Gabbard, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, well, on both of those counts, of course. Yeah. So look, here's a game changer, coronavirus. What do I mean by that? Well, look, I don't know that Bernie did a great job in the debate in highlighting this. And I don't know that people are going to come to this conclusion. But if ever there was a time to come to the conclusion that we all need Medicare for all, this would be it. And in the middle of a pandemic, it is certainly possible that people think, well, I already wanted Medicare for all because Medicare for all is winning with Democratic voters across the country in almost every state that's voted. For example, Texas, it won by 30 points, even though Bernie Sanders lost Texas. So they've been thinking all along that they prefer Bernie Sanders policies, but they were told by the media that he can't win and only Joe Biden can win. So that's a part of the reason they're voting for Biden. But maybe this pandemic changes their point of view and goes, you know what? Medicare for all is not optional anymore. We need it. We need it right now. And so I'm going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Is that possible? Of course it's possible. First of all, anything is possible based on this election alone. We don't have to go back to McGovern in '72. It's happened. Wild swings have happened in this election already. And second of all, given the exact change that's happening right now, that certainly gives Bernie Sanders a better chance of winning.
I mean, I think that that's the reason why they're trying to rush the primaries and get these states to vote, even though many voters are not going to show up. But I mean, in the state of Illinois, the poll workers decided not to show up, right? Which is why in the few polling places that remained open, it became crowded and dangerous considering the pandemic that we're dealing with. But I think they don't want to have a discussion about how Bernie's policies would make Americans feel a little more stable in this incredibly terrifying time, right? Because think about it, if you have nearly half of this country living paycheck to paycheck, they can't afford a $400 emergency. Adding a global pandemic to the mix where our economy is literally stopped, it's at a screeching halt. It makes people wonder, like, how am I gonna pay my bills? How am I gonna put food on the table for my kids? The situation is even worse than I could ever imagine. We wouldn't have to wait for our feckless loser representatives in Congress to debate what they're gonna do to provide economic relief. The economic relief would already be here in the form of a robust social safety net. And Democrats don't want that discussion to happen or for the majority of voters to come to that realization. So let's hurry up, let's get the primaries over with. Let's solidify Biden's lead, let's make him the nominee and let's move on with our lives. That's what they want. That's what Tom Perez wants, that's what the DNC wants. I know that that's my take on it, but I can't think of any other explanation.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.